For the game's synopsis, you will be the antagonist of the game, and you will arrive in a dilapidated city causing chaos within this fantasy setting with the paintball guns and other abilities in hand, and you will cause havoc across this city, bringing color and light to this dreary world.
Genre and rating on our game: first-person shooter, time trial survival, roguelike, and the rating for our game is T for Teen. Audience breakdown: ideal audience 13 to 21 years old, interested in finding an outlet to express chaos and art, capability of enjoying FPS games, playing PC games as well.
The gameplay loop starts off with spawning enemies at different time intervals. As those enemies are eliminated, they drop experience, so the player can level up. Once the player levels up, they will have the option to select an ability to upgrade their character with. This might also include upgrading a previously obtained ability. The way the game ends is the player's health reaches 0, and if they survive for 30 minutes, they get extra currency to help progress the character.
For the core actions for Chaos Fantasy, the movements for the game is to walk, run, jump, and crouch. And the active actions to use in the game: you can shoot paintballs and open doors. The abilities for the game are shoot multiple paintballs, you can regenerate your health, create areas of effects, AoEs, and more. The passive things for the game are the gain experience and level up from it, and the interactive actions for it is choosing what kind of abilities you want to have.
Now for the game goals. The main goal for the player is to survive as long as they can. Some sub-goals are to level up and gain new abilities to get stronger. From moment to moment, the player will have to decide if the ability they obtain will benefit them in lasting as long as they can throughout the battle.
Player feedback for our game is going to be broken down into two sections: auditory and visual feedback. On the auditory feedback, we're going to be having things such as weapon sounds, sounds of things exploding such as the doors bursting open, victory sounds, and of course, defeat sounds. On the visual feedback, we're going to have things such as player animation, doors exploding, health bars changing, damage counters being shown, and ammo count being changed around. We have plans on releasing our platform on PC, Mac, and Linux, as well as consoles, Xbox Series X and S, as well as PlayStation 5. We will be supporting controllers as well as mouse and keyboard for interaction and gameplay. Products comparable to Chaotic Fantasy include games such as Call of Duty Zombies, Vampire Survivors, and Splatoon. And some of the unique features of this game include first person, time trials, and the fact that it is going to be a paintball game as ammo.
The game thing for the Chaotic Fantasy is that it's bringing chaos and color to a colorless world.
Our game mood is chaotic and emotionally uplifting.
Now for the ability selection. This is what it looks like when the player levels up and selects an ability within the game. And they will get 3 options as to what to upgrade their character with.
In our game, from the main menu, the player will be able to access the settings to be able to alter the volume of their background music, sound effects, and ambient volume. They will also be able to see the current controller scheme so that they understand the key bindings for either the mouse and keyboard or the controller. They should also be able to load a new game, as well as load any save game that they've previously played, as well as access our credits to see who produced the game. On the development copy of the release of the game, there will be a toy box level featuring each individual mechanic. The player HUD will display relevant information to the player, such as their health, the amount of experience that they've gathered and generated throughout the level, their current level, and the amount of ammo they have. They will also be able to be notified of how much time they have remaining in the level, and they will also see their player avatar.
Now for the leveling and ability acquisition core system. With leveling in the game, the player, once they level up, gets to choose 3 abilities. Each level the player gets means they have more selections of abilities. This means that they can run to the same ability twice and be able to upgrade it. This allows the player to strengthen their current abilities and release the likelihood of their survival.
FPS style of combat. First-person shooter primarily refers to the perspective of the game. There are other genres that also use the first-person perspective.
Now for the time survival core system. There will be a timer within the game that will increase over time. This timer will be the key to spawning enemies and control the scaling of the enemies within the game. In certain increments, bosses will spawn within the game, allowing for an extra difficulty to the massive amount of enemies in the game. They will have a similar scaling system, but the boss every 10 minutes will be a lot stronger than the boss at 5 minutes. Now for the shooting paint cans object mechanic. The shooting of paint cans can give off an area effect in the surrounding area of the paint can. It not only distributes paint, but also sends out paintballs to hurt the enemies as well. The idea is for the paint cans to be spread around the world for a free source of damage to enemies to use if they walk by one.
Another one of our core systems in the game has the enemies spawning at different spawners throughout the level, and they will spawn every X couple of seconds for a duration of the time of the level. Now the key components with this is that the enemies will either have the ability to attack the player character via a melee attack, or they will be able to shoot at the player from ranged. Different enemies will react differently to the color of paintball that is fired upon them. So for instance, an example would be if the red paintball is fired at them, it might have a higher blast radius and be able to hit the opponent next to that enemy, giving it a little bit of an AoE damage. And some of the stats and variables is that the enemies are going to have passive abilities that can enhance them and make them stronger.
Shooting enemies interaction. Enemies will respond differently depending on the color of paintball fired at them.
Another one of our shooting mechanics for the game is that the player will be able to open up different doors by shooting the correct bullet or the correct paintball ammo at that particular door. So for example, if the door is painted red and the player fires a red paintball at the door, it'll burst open. If the player fires a green paintball at the red door, nothing will happen.
The next object mechanic is painting the environment. Every time the player shoots a wall, can, or enemy, paint will come from them. This will spread the paint around the map to become more colorful over time. It will stick to any object and be a good source of adding color to the field. The plan later is to allow the colors to mix as well, so that there could potentially be even more colors and more mixing and matching. Now for the skill and chance mechanics. There are plenty of opportunities for skill and chance within the game. The first is figuring out how to efficiently upgrade your character with abilities. The second is the physical and aim reflexes required for the combat because of the first-person shooter element. There's also the social element of just adding chaos everywhere and around and on the screen that potentially makes it harder on you to survive within the game. With chance, you'll be receiving random abilities each time you level up, and some of those abilities might even also have a chance of activating with a chance.
The aesthetics of our game is to create a sense of panic for the player, with hordes of enemies spawning all around them and chasing after them throughout the urban streets of the town. The objective of the game right now for this particular toy box level is for the players to defeat 10 enemies in order to survive, to beat the level. But further implementations of this is going to include the fact that the player is going to have to fight for their survival and last for a time duration against the mighty horde.
Now for the art style. The art of the game is based around a dull-looking and uninspired city, but also uses the paintballs that will spread and give more color to the city and allow for the paint to bring a different tone where you are at. Here are all of our references.
Development technology. Engine, Unreal Engine. Art, Photoshop, Blender, Google Draw. Audio, Audacity, Pro Tools, and Ableton Live. Design documentation. Microsoft Word, Google Documents. Production, Jira, Hyra. Version control, GitHub.